Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to offer this course remotely from a far, far place, and I hope you'll enjoy um, while going through this mini course of 8 weeks. I have a bit background. My name is Prasant Mohapatra. I have been the chair of the Department of Computer Science over here at University of California, Davis. I have a long track of academic experience. I started my academic journey more than 25 years back, maybe no, probably around 30 years back, and I have been in research activities for more than 25 years now. So I would like to share my experience in this long journey, and I have truly enjoyed doing research in various areas of computer science. My main theme of research is in computer networks, primarily in wireless networks. However, during this mini course, I will not be discussing on, or any of my presentation will not be tied only to a specific area. It is more general in a sense. So irrespective of is of your interest, this talk will be valid. And if you are not in computer science also, anything and everything that I discuss in this mini course will be still valid. So it's not biased towards any specific area or topic. So several years back, I thought maybe I'll summarize my experience in various modes. I have given, for the last 5 years, I have given this presentation probably 5 different times in many parts of the world, twice in India. So last summer, I gave a 1-week workshop in which we covered this mini course at Bangalore, a place near Bangalore, and there were a lot of attendees as who took it, and I got very positive feedback. So over the years, the content of this mini course has also evolved, and I hope you will enjoy through this short journey with me. And I'd like to also mention that I would prefer to have this as interactive as possible. Now, I do understand the limitation that it cannot be as interactive as in a classroom environment, but we should try to mimic it. So please do ask me as many questions as you can. And again, unlike a regular course, I have also taught a course on computer networks using internet, but unlike a well-established course where I pretty much know what to cover and the material and all that. Unlike that, here research methodology, it's kind of the variance is very high. It differs a lot from person to person, from group to group, from various topics to topics, and disciplines to disciplines. So you can bring up, unless you bring up the questions that you have in your mind, it will not be possible for me to make it as broad as possible. So to be honest, when I was teaching this in Bangalore last year, in some of the sessions, the audience was talking more than me, and we had very valuable discussions. So I would encourage you to ask as much questions as possible as we go along. So with that, let me clarify a few things. What are the expectations of doing this mini course? We will spend about 8 weeks learning a lot about research. So obviously, if you have signed up for this course, I'm assuming that you all are interested in research. Otherwise, you're probably at the wrong place. We will learn about best practices and useful advice. So as I said, unlike a traditional course, here there is no recipe. So don't assume that by the end of this course I will hand you over a recipe and you use that recipe and you will be a successful researcher. It never happens that way. If that were the case, then anybody and everybody could be a good researcher, which is not the case. So we will talk about useful advices on how to do research and how to do various, what are the different components of research and how to address these components and so on. We will try to inspire and motivate ourselves. So inspiration and motivation are two fundamental ingredients of good research. Without proper inspiration and without adequate motivation, it's very difficult to do research. Again, research is such a thing that it could be natural, easy, or it could be very difficult. And that range of spectrum depends a lot on how much inspiration and how much motivation you have. So we'll try to see how we can inspire ourselves and motivate ourselves in terms of research. Again, I will never be overestimating throughout this course the importance of hard work. You really have to work hard in research. Research is, let me be upfront, research is not easy. It needs a lot of hard work, and you should be prepared to put in that much time and effort. Because if it were that easy, then you probably don't need to figure it out, then people would have already done that. Okay. So the other thing is we will try to create a foundation for the quest of knowledge and innovation. The main driving force for research is your quest, your thirst for knowledge and innovations. So we'll try to create a foundation in order to build up those basic ingredients of research. Okay. So again, I am requesting you to participate very actively and learn by practicing. If you have a lot of questions or anything, you can, I will leave some time for you to ask questions. You can ask questions, or you can also send me email, and anytime you send me email, I will respond. I would suggest that anytime you send email, in the subject you write IUCEE and then something, so that it immediately catches my interest. So please do ask as many questions as you have, and there is nothing in this course, there is nothing as a bad question, because it's anything and everything is kind of a valid question in this. So the other thing also I wanted to mention about the disclaimer. I mentioned about the expectations, and along with the expectations, I want to identify a few disclaimers. There is no one size fits all. I mean, you can never have. I cannot tell that here is one methodology. If you will do, you will be successful. The same methodology could lead to success for one person, but may not be very effective in another person, because research is kind of personal thing also. So you cannot define like this is one size that will fit everybody. But there are some fundamentals which tweaked here and there based on the personalities or personal choices will help you, and we will stick with those generalities. And also I will identify how sometimes things can be molded to fit into different personalities. There is, as I have said, there is no clean recipe for success. It's not like I'll show you a flow chart, you do this thing, you'll be successful. There is nothing like that. Okay, if you are expecting that I'll provide you a clean recipe for success, it's not that. I will be describing the best practices, what are the essential components, how to do research and all that. Beyond that, as I said, there is a need for a lot of hard work. And again, I did mention this term success and failure. There is no clear definition of what is successful research, what is unsuccessful research, and all. There are some ways of quantifying it, and we'll talk about that. But sometimes a failed experiment provides, or provides a foundation for good research. So again, success and failures are more relative terms in research, and it's not as easily quantifiable as in any other course. Research is not for everyone, okay? You don't have to do research, and again, you should not be doing research just because it's a glorified thing or something like that. So you have to figure out whether you really want to do research or not. It's not a requirement. There's nothing to be glorified in this, and you could have a equally or even better life without doing any research. Some advices that I will provide through these 8 classes may not fit individual needs. In some cases you will need completely or a slightly different or adapted model, and I'm willing to discuss any specific individual needs that you may have as we go along. We can discuss through email, or I can even call and talk to you. So again, it's not, while we are discussing about various components, it's not one or the other. It's not that you use this model or that model. It's sometimes somewhere in between, or a hybrid, or some adaptation of those models. So I will be identifying those, and many times you will see while discussing about a thing that I will suggest something, then I'll suggest something else that you might feel that I'm contradicting my previous statement, but it's not a contradiction, it's rather an adaptation for various needs. Okay. The quest for learning may trade off other activities. So basically the goal in research is you want to learn. So in that case, you have to do a trade-off from other activities on, whether it is a commercial venture or non-commercial venture. Again, none of those things should be either or not. You should be able to combine a few things in order to have a better learning exposure. So the next thing is I want to give you an overview. I'll spend a little bit time on defining each of these things. I'll give you an overview of what is research, or basically, so here what we are trying to do is, during this entire 8 weeks, what we are going to cover. So this will give you an idea, and I will bring up this slide multiple times in every class so that you know where we are and what is the scope. So these are some of the topics that I will be covering during the 8-week class. If you feel that this is not useful for you, or something else is more useful for you, feel free to send me an email and I can easily adapt to your needs. But here is the plan, and this is what I have also presented in the previous offering of this course. Okay. So first we will define what is research. Okay, so we'll have a clear vision, because this will bring all of us into the same level that this is what we are defining research. The goal, again, let me take a step back. The goal of this course, I don't know where it is required in your curriculum or not, or something, I'm not too concerned about that. The goal of this research is to enhance the research awareness in Indian engineering colleges. So just think about it. I'm not criticizing anything, but I'm stating the facts. If you pick up any rankings of the world in research ranking, there are quite a few research rankings which are quite respectable in the world. India has a population of 1.2 billion with probably thousands of engineering institutions. But if you pick up the ranking, not a single Indian engineering colleges, including IITs and Indian Institute of Science and all that, not a single Indian institution is in the top 300 in the world. Okay, which is alarming, because it's such a vast, large country and all that. So we are way behind in research. The positive side of that is, to put a positive spin on that, that means the bar of research is so low that it's easy to that bar in India. So think about it. In the top 300, there are several universities. I'm talking about, forget about the Western countries. There are even, there are multiple universities from China. Singapore is a tiny place. There are 2 Singaporean universities in the top 200. So there are many other places in the world where there are they are present in top 300, and unfortunately, and the Indian institutions are far behind. So one of the goal is for providing these type of presentation. One of my goal is to inspire and to engage more people in research, and this will provide a foundation for that. The reason why I wanted to start with by defining research is 3 years back when I was offering this course somewhere in southern India, I asked this question: what is research, and how it is done and all that. Alarming and shocking experience for me that even the fundamental definition of research was messed up. Okay. Research, we will talk about how to select a topic for research, and what are the critical steps for it, what are the issues, or how do you go about doing that. Then we'll talk about different types of research, okay, so that you have an idea of what are possible options that you have in terms of doing research. So once we do that, so kind of at 1, 2, and 3, you will have a clear knowledge about what is research and all that. So maybe as you go along these steps, you can also think, you can start thinking your own topic, you want to start thinking what type of research you want to do, and so on. Then we will talk about, so once we complete this part, we'll talk about the real research part, where basically we will talk about how to read a paper. It might sound trivial for you that what is he going to tell us about reading a paper? Why can't I just reading a paper? What I mean to say over here is how to read a paper very effectively. Okay, and you will see that it's not in research, it's not just reading a paper, how to make the most use of it. We'll talk about, and this is a very critical phase of research, we'll talk about problem formulation. How do you form the problem of your research? One thing, I'll tell you what I've heard based on my prior experience, what people have told me in the past on how they do this, and I'll tell you why that is wrong. Okay. We'll talk about different types of research approaches. How do you approach about solving it? Then we'll talk about how do you, once you solve the problem, how do you evaluate it? How do you validate it? Okay, so those issues we'll discuss over here. What are the what are the different problems? Again, all these things are not tied up to a specific topic or specific area. It could be for any area. Okay. We'll talk about conference and journal publications. What are good conferences? What are good journals? What is the process of selection of papers? And what is important? What is not important? And so on. We will also talk about the techniques of writing good technical papers. Okay, how do you write good papers? And so writing and presenting is also a very important component of research. You may do the best possible research, but unless you are able to explain it to the world or to your peers, it's of no use. So the value of research is enhanced by disseminating the outcome of your research. And the dissemination of research is done through writing technical papers and presenting the paper. So we'll talk about what are the best practices for, or how to write a good paper, and what are the best practices for presenting the work. We will, and this may not be relevant to all of you. For those of you who are into research, supporting research needs money. In order to get money, you have to write proposals to government agencies or to industry. So how do you write good proposals? Okay, so I'll talk about the details of writing proposals, how they are evaluated, and so on. One of the most important part in research is professional ethics, and I can never overemphasize this. So I will clarify what is professional ethics and why it is so important, and I'll give you some numbers which could be a little bit embarrassing, but I'll talk about the details of this, and this is something that I'll overly emphasize. If not anything from this course, I think you should take this thing very seriously. Collaborative research, again, this may not be applicable for all of you, is like it is more and more desirable to do research in collaboration with peers. So it's not like if you want to do research in operating system, the goal is not to find an operating system or people in operating system and work together. That's not the goal. Collaborative research is look for complementary strength. You have a problem that needs strength in multiple areas. Each person has certain set of skill set. You look at complementary strength rather than supplementary ones. And so we'll talk about collaborative research in that domain. And I will end the talk with a few final remarks. In a nutshell is the plan I have for the 8 weeks. If you think if there is something else needs to be covered, feel free to let me know, and I will try to include that in my presentation. Okay, so let's get started. So why isn't it moving? Okay. So the first topic that we'll talk about is what is defined research. Research is an art. Okay, you might think that, okay, I should have started research is a science, but in reality research is an art of investigation of new and innovative aspects. So a couple things I want to underline over here is you are investigating new and innovative aspects of any branch of knowledge. Okay, so you are, with the quest of knowledge, we are trying to investigate new and innovative approaches. Now, research comprises of defining and redefining problems. So keep in mind, I'm not only talking about defining, but also redefining problems. You might have to formulate hypotheses, and we will elaborate on all of these. You will suggest some solutions, or in some cases, you will not suggest solution, but solution approaches. Okay. Some types of research, you have to collect a lot of data and then analyze this data. And after analysis, you might be doing some derivations or some experimentation. And eventually what you will do is you will validate the hypothesis and you will deduce new conclusions. So it's kind of a loaded statement, but these are all the things that essentially defines research. Okay. And in a more formal way, research is also defined as search for knowledge through objective and systematic method. Okay, give this objective and systematic method of finding a solution to a problem or developing fundamental theories. So keep in mind, in research you are either developing fundamental theories or you are coming up with objective and systematic method. It's not like you have a problem, you solved it. That's not, that is some amount of research, but a good quality research will be, it's not that you solved it, you also derived a methodology that can be used for solving similar or other problems. Okay, so that distinguishes quality research from any ordinary research. So again, these are some things that what I just talked about essentially are the foundations of defining research, and we'll use a lot of these terms that I've underlined over here. We'll be using that again and again in this course. Now, We will take a break. Let me complete this slide, then we can take a break, and during the break you can ask me more questions also. So the other thing of research is it has four important components. One is the culture of research, the attitude towards research, the motivation, and the dignity for research. Note that research is a culture. It's like, for example, if you're following a culture, you don't make an effort through it, you practice it, okay? And, being Indian is a culture. It's not that you are making an effort to it. You grow with it, you practice it, so it basically comes to you without any effort. Research should be like that. If done properly, research is a culture. It's to be practiced through continual quest for innovation. Once you develop that culture, it is not an imposition or a load, it comes natural to you. And again, as I said, I can never overestimate this. You need really hard work and dedication. So you should have a very positive attitude that you really need to spend time, effort, and really go the extra mile in order to achieve your goals. Okay, so it needs dedication. It needs a lot of perseverance because nothing works the way you want to. If anything can fail, it always fails. And you may be, spending a lot of time and effort on something which will never materialize in any positive direction. So you need to have an appropriate attitude and persevere through all this while committing a lot of hard work and be dedicated. Okay. The motivation part is research planning cannot and should not follow scheduled or time-sensing approaches. You cannot say that, okay, I'm doing this now, maybe I'll start research in April and I'll get done in June. It doesn't work that way. It's not like you cannot put, it's kind of a natural thing. You cannot put a time that, okay, I'll start here and here. There's no concept of starting. It's like a culture. Think about it. If you want to follow a culture, it's not like, okay, I'll start being this person from this state to this state. It doesn't work like that. You cannot have a time-sensed approach, and I'll elaborate on this further also. Again, as I have said always, you don't have to do research. You make a decision, you make a choice. This is your choice. Not everyone has to do research, and if you are not a person better than somebody else who is not doing research, it's just a different choice. You need to learn to respect all choices, and you should not be you should not be pursuing research just for glorification. Okay. Keep in mind again, the one thing that I want to emphasize over here is it needs hard work. Okay, there is no substitute for that. And the other thing to always remember is it's more a philosophical thing. In PhD, which gives you the ultimate degree in research, the PH stands for philosophy. So you have to be a good thinker, a good philosopher, or have that kind of attitude. A successful research, and by successful research, what I mean is, it's not that what you are trying to solve you are able to solve. That is, you do research and you enjoy doing it. That's when you can call yourself as a successful researcher. Okay, so let me pause over here for 5 minutes, and during that time, feel free to write down or text your questions, and I will address them once I gather all the questions. Okay, so let's continue. I don't think I saw any questions, but I guess, yeah, since we are just beginning, probably you don't find anything yet to ask questions, or you are a little bit shy about asking questions, but hopefully over the time you will get over that and we will have a lot of questions. Again, you don't have to, if you are not ready now, you don't have to, type in your question now, but you could email me and, I will answer the questions back to you through email. But if I find it's useful for the entire audience to know about it, I will be answering the questions at the beginning of the subsequent classes all the time. So during the week, you can email me your questions anytime. Okay. Let's continue with where we left. So what are the, after the definition, we need to also discuss for research. So basically, the first part, while defining, we answered the questions, what? Okay, so what is research? Then the next question obviously comes up is why you should do research. Okay, so that's what answering the why part is, the motivation for research. Research you are doing for, one of the foremost thing is you are doing for intellectual satisfaction of doing something innovative and creative. There are a lot of things that you do for personal satisfaction, and if you think about it, some of these, if you quantify it, all this personal satisfaction thing, they cost money, and sometimes you work for that. So intellectual satisfaction of doing something innovative and creative is always very satisfying. Okay, so innovative and creative are two key components that you should keep in mind. Okay, meaningful and long-lasting contribution towards the advancement of mankind and society. Just think about the current situation, what we are doing. We are probably 20,000 miles apart in almost on the opposite sides of the world, and we could have this exchange of knowledge in completely different time zones, and how much it's about 10 p.m. in the night over here, and you are it's around the middle of the day over there, and we are at completely different locations, and we are having this beautiful medium in order to have this exchange of information. We wouldn't have been able to do this if there were not adequate research done several years back in order to facilitate these type of communication medium. So if you can have contributions for such advancement or any kind of advancement for the mankind and society, which will have a broader impact, that's a very that's not only defines excellent research, but also provides much more intellectual satisfaction than anything else. Okay, you have to enjoy the challenges of solving unsolved problems. Otherwise, you may not like research. And one thing, as I may have mentioned this earlier, if you enjoy research, then the hard work doesn't bother you much. But if you do not enjoy research, then it becomes a burden on you. It becomes a very kind of empowering burden on you. Okay. Through research, you also attain higher level of understanding of fundamental concepts as well as their practical significance, and that is also a motivation for good research, that there are fundamental concepts. Can you gain a higher level of understanding of those, and can you derive some practical applications of those? That motivates. Sometimes when you find that the output of your research is being used in the real world, that gives you a lot. Any potential for that to happen will get highly motivated. Okay. The bottom line here, what I wanted to mention is, of course, you get advanced degrees, you have financial benefits, and you get more respect. But all those things comes along the way, okay? These should not be the goal. You don't want to do research just for the sake of getting a PhD or just for the sake of making money. You can make more money by, other ways. Or you just don't want to do research that if I do research then people will respect me. That's a myth. So those things that come along the way, if you're doing research, you don't have to worry about those things. They will come along the way. Okay. The other points to remember I have already mentioned is research cannot be taught or improvised. Contradicting action now. Okay. I'm trying, so I want to make it clear that my goal is not to teach you research, or I cannot improvise on you, obviously. So research is something that you have to practice it as a culture. What I'm trying to do in this short course is trying to lay out the best practices or advise you on, what works, what doesn't work, or what may not work, and what are some of the approaches of doing it. Okay, so it's not question of like a regular course where if I know this is how it works, then that's how it works. Okay, so but here again, there is no clean recipe that I can tell you do X, Y, Z and you'll be done. Okay, so the other thing is it doesn't follow an on-off model. So it's not that you can say, okay, I'm busy now, my brother is getting married, so in the month of March I have a trip planned somewhere in July, so from June through September I will not do any research, then I will start and all. It's not an on-off model. You cannot good research, you cannot say this is when I turn on doing research and this is where I turn it off. Okay, it has to be something, you have to live with it, you have to think. If you're working on a problem, maybe while driving or while taking a shower, while just walking, you are thinking about it. It's subconsciously it comes to you that you think about it. You don't have to make an effort, or you don't have to schedule that this is when I'll think about it. It just comes onto your mind that, okay, this is what I'm trying to solve. Maybe there is another way, or what are the other ways, and so on. Okay, continuous nourishment is essential. You have to nourish your research. That means you have to read new things. You have to find out how other things are done, what everybody else is working on. So you have to continually nourish it. Otherwise, it fades away. Okay, and I've already mentioned this point. There is no one-size-fits-all model. It differs from people to people, person to person, groups to group, and it could, even for the same person, one approach that worked for a specific topic may be slightly different for another topic. Okay, and the other thing is you cannot define the pace of research. You cannot say that, okay, I will do a lot of research in April and then I'll slow down, I'll do more research in August and then I'll slow down a bit. You cannot dictate the pace of research. It should not be imposed on that way. And again, the directions also, it organically takes different directions and defines its own pace. So these are some of the random points you have to remember in terms of the kind of the basic introduction to research. The essential components of research are as follows. You have to, and this is where some of the topics that I mentioned in the scope are kind of aligned to this. So you start with this, your first identify a topic. Okay, so this is the topic I want to work on. And again, all these components we will elaborate as we go along. Once you identify the topic, the next thing is you are defining a problem that you will try to solve. Problem is not like, again, you should think about this in a very broad sense. It's not like you are solving a mathematical problem where you are finding the value of x. Problem is a bigger scope where you are probably, the goal is to find a set of methodologies, or the goal is to find a new design, or the goal is to find a call and all that. So there are a lot of different types of problems, and we'll get into the details of that, and how much effort you put in these things also we'll talk about that. Once you identify a topic, define a problem, then you go through the solution path. Okay, solution and validation. You solve the problem, that means you basically work on your research, you figure that out, on how it needs to be done, and once you do that, you have to show to your peer or show to the world that why what you got is correct. You have to validate that through experimentation or through models or whatever. So validate. Sometimes you go back and forth between these two because you tried a solution, you could not validate it, so you found that okay, there is something wrong in there. You basically go back and forth between that. So once this part is over, I'm not saying that you are following the same sequence for these things. I'll talk more about this when we talk about writing. Writing is something that pretty much you start right over here, okay, and you follow through the entire path in the writing, okay. So, but writing is an essential component that, you know, gets over when you are done with this part. So writing starts basically over here in the time scale, and it gets over in here. The other thing is, once you are done with everything, you have to present your work. So that's also another important component in your, or an essential component of research. Okay. So what we have done so far is we defined what is research. Okay. So just to summarize, you know, we defined research. We talked about the motivation for research. We talked about the essential component of research. The next thing basically in the essential components is, the first thing that we found is we need to identify a topic. So the next thing we will talk to, we select a topic for research. Okay, that's very critical in the sense that, you know, that will help you. You will live through the topic for a longer duration. Having said that, it's not that once you choose a topic you cannot change. It's okay to start with something, realize the limitations, or, you know, for whatever reason, if you want to explore another topic, you should be able to do it. So in topic selection process, you have to realize, the first thing is you realize your expectations, you realize your expertise and limitations. So expertise means what you have good background. Limitation is what you are not good at. You need to realize those things to first, that okay, I am good at this, I'm not good at this, and these are the things that I know much, these are the things I don't know much, these are the things I'm interested in and I can learn more, these are the ones that I'm not interested in, and so I may not make an effort to learn. So you identify all those things. You basically don't put yourself in a narrow area. Don't make the breadth of your, focus on the breadth of your knowledge first. Okay, don't worry about the depth, because that's something is your goal to acquire during the research part, that you may not have. It's okay not to have deeper knowledge, because you don't want to always corner yourself that okay, this is the topic on which I have the deepest possible knowledge compared to the other topics, so I have to do research in that. That's not a good practice. You look at the breadth of your knowledge, then choose the topic. You may not have the topic that you choose, you may not have deep knowledge in that when compared to the other topics, but that's okay. You can increase the depth of your knowledge in that topic if you are interested in that. Be very specific about your topic, but flexible about the scope. That Okay, this is what I, so it's not like you say that, okay, I want to work on something related to, you know, large scale systems. So, you know, that's a very fuzzy way of defining what is large scale. And, you know, system is also very big. So when you say large scale system, it's like become very broad. So you be very specific about your topic. Like, okay, I want to work on something related to, let's say, computational biology on genes or something, or, you know, that's an area that I don't know anything about. I want to work on these, you know, a specific type of network. Let's say, you know, for me, I'll think that, okay, I want to work on wireless networks, looking at the security issues or whatever. So be specific but flexible about the scope, that you can tweak the scope as we go along. Okay. Do not set rigid barriers regarding the topic. Once you define the topic, once you identify the topic, don't put barriers that say that, okay, I have chosen this topic of operating system, but in operating system what I mean is it has to be an open model like Linux, and it has to be a model like, let's say, um, Windows or iOS or something. So don't put rigid barrier in there, okay, because putting rigid barrier will limit your thought process. The topic may not be discipline specific. So this is something that I also preach, in the sense that, think about it, the problems do not occur. You know, this discipline, what I mean by discipline is, you know, we have these disciplines of electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, computer science, civil engineering, and all that. But the problems in the world are not discipline specific. So for example, when if the goal comes that there is a large river, you want to put a bridge across the river, it's not that the decision, that need says that, okay, I have to be within the domain of only civil engineering. Only civil engineering probably nowadays cannot build a bridge, because you need electricity, you need many other things, and mechanical engineering support and all that thing. And similarly, let's say if there is a disaster, let's say a hurricane comes or tsunami comes, before this disaster or earthquake comes, when this disaster comes, right before they come, they don't think that, okay, let's do a electrical engineering damage or mechanical engineering damage, or it's not that. It's not, the problems are not on specific topic, so, or specific discipline. So you should not limit your topics only to be discipline specific. So that's what I mean by that statement. Also, this is a very common and important thing, is to be prepared to revisit the topic selection if needed. Okay, so you tried on something, it didn't work. It's okay for you to revisit and refine your topic. You know, there's nothing being enforced onto you that you should stay on the same topic. Okay, so this where I will stop over here, and we will continue on from this point in the next class. I will be, during the next 5 minutes, if you have any questions, I would like to, so I will be online for the next 5 minutes. If you have any questions, either, you know, I would suggest to type in the question in the chat box, and I will answer the question right away.
Sir, a couple of questions have come in.
Where do I see it?
I can read them out, sir.
Okay.
What are the various methods of validation?
Yeah, so there are multiple methods of validations, like whether you can do through analytical modeling or simulations, and or through experimentations. I have slides on those. I will cover those when I'll talk about validation, and we can look at a few specific examples to compare different types of validation methods. So I will get into the details of that. Other questions?
Next question says, what if the research work does not lead or involves an application in industry?
So the goals of research are different. All research doesn't have to lead to an application in industry, and also the contrary statement is you should that are not related to applications. It depends on different types of research. For example, the fundamental contributions in the areas of science, let's say physics and chemistry and all, they have not necessarily all found applications in industry, but we use those in daily life, and sometimes they help in creating new areas of knowledge. So the many research that were done 50 years back which had no value at that point of time, but people are realizing the value now and trying to exploit. So usually research is way ahead of industrial applications. Sometimes the applications do catch up and sometimes they don't, but it's okay as long as you have some meaningful and fundamental contributions. It's good to do application-oriented research, but if you can find a topic that you think is providing fundamental contributions which could have useful applications in future, you should not shy away from that research.
So the faculty who asked the first question says, what do you mean by revisiting the topic selection?
Oh, revisiting the topic selection means, let's say you selected a topic in the sense that, let me think of an example. Okay, I probably, let's say I'm picking an area that I will do research on some kind of security through JSON or something like that. Then after a while, spending time, doing literature survey and all that, I found that, okay, I found something else I was looking at, then I found some security which led me to some cryptographic solution, and I started liking cryptography. So that means the topic that you started with to go for this biometric security, you have changed that now. You want to do work in cryptography. So you should not think back that cryptography I'm supposed to I had decided to do biometry. So that's what I mean, that you should be prepared to revisit the topic selection, and it's okay to change to a different topic if that's where you find more excitement in. So it's not that okay, even if other things are interesting to me, because I have decided I will work on topic A, I have to work on topic A. There is no such. You should not impose yourself with those kind of restrictions. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Suppose we have selected the topic security in wireless networks. What is the meaning of rigidness?
Oh, rigid barriers that I talked over here? Is that the question?
I will ask them to clarify, sir. Madam, if you can clarify, I will ask again. The next question says, any specific do's and don'ts of topic name?
I think the only thing that you have to consider is to realize, as the first thing that I mentioned, is to realize your expertise and your limitations. Once, I mean, those are the only thing. Otherwise, you know, that there is no do's and don'ts basically in topic selection. When we go into the problem formulation, that's where I'll bring in more is. But at this stage, if we are talking about the topic selections, I don't want to put too much do's and don't, then you know your thought process will get limited.
What is the normal time span of a research?
That again is an undefined term. It depends on what research you're doing. So, you know, there are research that, based on my own experience, that we have completed a good research effort in a month. There are some research that have taken 5 years. So it depends on the research problem you are looking at. There are some research that have taken 20 years for people. So there is no clear timeline for research. And again, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. Please give more thoughts on be specific about topics but flexible about the scope.
Be specific about the scope is, okay, so what I meant by that is you can define your topic. Okay, I want to work on, let's say, processor architecture. But then if you limit yourself that I'm looking at only one type of architecture, that RISC architecture or something, you should not be limiting yourself. That's where you have the flexibility that, okay, I decided I will work on processor architecture, but what type of architecture, I can be, you know, looking at a broad range of architecture, then converging on something. So we have run out of time. Yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
Sir.
Yeah.
There is one last question. I can send it to you email if you want.
Okay, so yeah, any you know, you don't have to have only one more question. Have as many questions as possible and email it to me. I will all the questions at the beginning of the next class. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and I will see you all in the virtual space in 1 week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
The organizer